Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
It is super essential to establish your why, to think about your values, which is how you make your decisions. But that's not enough, right? Like just you knowing is not enough. So the brand messaging really comes in to how you're sharing all of that insight with the rest of the world. And most importantly, with your ideal customers and partners, right? So everyone who comes into contact with you should understand what you stand for, what you do, what makes you different. It should be very clear.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. The best way to describe today's episode is with a Venn diagram, which is conveniently one of my love languages. Imagine the area that overlaps brand strategy, money mindset, and a desire to do good in the world. And I know you, my fellow multi-passionate. You don't just love all the things, you love the people and the planet too, and you want to make a difference. But have you wondered how to do it? Especially if you're one person running the show and doing all the things. That's what we're talking about today with my guest, Ashlee Sang. Ashlee is based in Central Illinois with a background in anthropology and a penchant for travel. Through Ashlee Sang Consulting, she uses the power of words to help purpose-driven founders discover and share their message so they can grow their impact and their business. Before doing brand messaging strategy and consulting, she worked with a variety of nonprofit organizations, including a human rights education organization in Senegal and a local branch of Habitat for Humanity. Ashlee is passionate about small personal changes anyone can make to improve the environment and other people's lives. Ashlee and I cover what it means to be a purpose-driven business and how value-aligned messaging is integral to being a profitable one. I love how she explains that sharing what you stand for helps you stand out. Ashlee provides a list of 3 things you must share about who you are and the places you need to ensure you are doing that. She explains how brand strategy connects to visual marketing and what you can do to ensure they work together effectively. We talk about the ripple effect we can all create in the world and probably are doing right now. And Ashlee covers 5 ways you can be a business for good without giving heaps of money. It should be noted that her business for good philosophy was the first thing that drew her to me and made me want to invite her onto the show, which proves the point about how sharing our values can help us connect. A few recommendations before we dive into the conversation with Ashlee. 1, you'll want to listen to episodes 44 and 65 on ethical marketing and copy, and episode 65 on visual branding as a complement to our episode today. 2, part of Ashlee's recommendation today is to review your values. To help you, I have a core values worksheet in the Positively Productive Free Resources Library. You can access that at positivelyproductive.com/free. 3, Ashlee offers many ways you can step into being a business for good. They're all simple, but if you need help figuring out which order to do them in and which way to do them that's best for you to do it productively, message me about a strategy or accountability package that would work best for you. I'd be honored to help. Welcome, Ashlee Sang, to the Positively Living podcast. I am delighted to talk about some topics that are really near and dear to my heart today.
Yeah, so am I. Thanks so much.
Would you start by telling us a bit about who you are and who you help and what lights you up?
Yeah. So I am a brand messaging strategist and a consultant. And I love to work with visionary founders. These are people who have this pie in the sky vision for what they want to accomplish. They have so many ideas. They don't always know where to start, and they don't always know how to connect that amazing idea, that amazing vision with the people they're trying to reach. So I am the person that distills everything in their head and heart so that it makes sense to everyone who doesn't live inside their body every day. And I'm all about creating consistency for them and their brand in allowing them to show up in a way that feels really aligned with their values. Values and purpose are super important to me in my personal life and obviously in my business and with the people I work with.
So, given that's the perfect segue into talking about what these things really mean, because boy, do we have a lot of buzzwords flying around, and you and I both know the importance of them and how we try to live them. But for the sake of argument, let's get into what does it mean to be purpose driven and to have that alignment where you have like your value aligned kind of approach to things. What does that mean?
Yeah. So purpose driven, I mean, it can definitely mean whatever you want it to be, right? But for me, I love the idea of business for good. I love the idea of absolutely going after profitability. Profit is so important. That's what makes you sustainable. Money makes the world go round. So it's not about being nonprofit, it is about using business and using your position as a founder to create change in the world. I'm super passionate about the very small changes or the very big changes that each and every one of us can make and sort of what we make collectively as well. So that's kind of how I view purpose, just that there is something pushing you forward, some sort of vision beyond, well, I need to put food on the table for myself and my family. Which honestly, I mean, that is a valid purpose in and of itself, but I love it when it is connected to something greater as well. And then in terms of being values aligned, this is something that I think can be overlooked or is often forgotten, but it makes such a difference in every single aspect of your business and in your day, honestly. So it really helps once you establish what those values are, what you want to stand for. First of all, it helps you stand out, which is amazing. All of us have competition. There are a million and one other podcast hosts, brand strategists, professional organizers, mindset coaches. There are a million and one out there, right? So why would they choose you? They choose you because of what you stand for, how you relate to them, how you show up day after day. So it's just a smart business move, first and foremost. But second, it makes you feel so much more confident and clear in any actions you need to take. We have to make decisions every single day, all day long as business owners. So many of us suffer from shiny object syndrome. And yeah, but at the same time, the reason we're great entrepreneurs is because we know when we need to seize an opportunity. It's not, sometimes things are even better than we could have imagined, and we need to know when to seize those. So when you are aligned with your values, when you're acting from a place of alignment, then your yeses and nos are a lot easier. It's not foolproof. You may still doubt yourself, but you have an anchor to make those decisions in your marketing, in how you spend your money, in who you hire, in your operations, in the offers you want to create, in the pricing you want to have, all the things. So, yeah, that's sort of how I view purpose and values in a business.
Yes. And now this makes so much sense why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because what you're talking about, this alignment idea, right? Okay, is very much what I talk about in terms of creating the values based filters for what we allow in from a productivity and organizing standpoint. What are we bringing into our schedule? What are we saying yes to, no to? All of these things. This is the same idea. This is the same principles that we're talking about so much on the Positively Living podcast. And you are talking about them in terms of how you are standing out as a brand and also how you're making choices as a founder and as a visionary. And I love what you said that, yeah, we talk about shiny object syndrome, right? And the squirrel moments and stuff. Well, a squirrel is more distracting. Bright, shiny object is more like, ooh, that's interesting. And to your point, we do need to know when maybe we see something that's intriguing and that is something to jump on, but being clear about what I call filters, or like you said, an anchor for does this make sense for me or not, helps you make that decision in a more accurate and a faster way.
Yeah, a lot less wasted time, a lot less wasted energy, and a lot less wasted money as well.
And also, I think with an intentionality that drives you, because energetically, when you're constantly second guessing yourself, that's exhausting. And you don't show up the same way as when you can say very clearly, oh, this is for me. I'm going to do this. And you jump into it fully. And I feel like, there's this self-fulfilling prophecy that can happen if you're like completely hesitant coming at it from fear versus you're coming at it from this is authentic to me and what I'm doing, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I love that. Okay, so with this idea of being values aligned, I kind of see the two of them as saying that the values aligned part of it, understanding and being very clear on that, and then connecting to the messaging, which I'd love for you to expand upon. Those are the steps that we can take toward basically not only creating, but essentially living this purpose driven brand of ours, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it is super essential to establish your why, to think about your values, which is how you make your decisions. But that's not enough, right? Like just you knowing is not enough. So the brand messaging really comes in to how you're sharing all of that insight with the rest of the world. And most importantly, with your ideal customers and partners, right? So everyone who comes into contact with you should understand what you stand for, what you do, what makes you different. It should be very clear. And the ways that brand messaging shows up are in your elevator pitch, are in your podcast description, in your social bios, on every single page and line of your website, in any content you create, right? Like, oh, I don't even know what to post today, or I don't know what to blog about. Well, use your values as a filter for that, or use questions from your audience that you know are important to them as a jumping off point, right? All of that goes into brand messaging. And at the end of the day, it's all about creating that consistent image. Because just like we have brand colors and a beautiful logo and headshots and all the things, just like we want to show up visually consistent, we also absolutely want to sound and feel consistent, which I think is often forgotten, or we think we need to spice it up for some reason. And of course, variety, like the amount of variety is unlimited as long as you are starting from a base of what is my brand messaging strategy? How does this align to my values and my audience? From there, the options are endless. You're not boxed in, you just have structure to actually grow from.
I just, that one like took me a moment because I was like, I hadn't thought about it this way before, but it's so clear. Yeah, you have a specific. I talked with Maria Platusik about our brand strategy from the standpoint of it's beyond logos, right? So you're thinking about all the elements of how you're going to show up, but she does it from the visual side, from the graphic designer side. But having that consistency in terms of how you sound and feel, I mean, that really speaks to the authenticity side of like, does that make sense? Is that like, for example, is that how Lisa would show up? And all of the wacky reels that I do is 100% me. You know what I mean? It is very true to who I am and also speaks to what I value. But I love that idea that you're paying a lot of attention to your color boards and how the look is there in terms of what we see visually, but you're also painting a picture for people with the values that you express.
Yeah, and the visual branding and the brand messaging should absolutely go hand in hand, right? Like that's that consistency again. So if you have a super green, leafy logo and your business name is something about sustainability or the environment, and then in all of your reels or in all of your stories, you're drinking out of disposable cups from coffee shops with straws, or you never talk about sustainability, that is very misaligned. And people who land on your website, but then see however you show up in the world in person, on networking events, on social, however it is, they're going to be confused and you're going to lose that trust factor pretty much instantly. So it's really how all of the moving pieces of the entire brand fit together. That's what we're going for.
I love that. So it's really that consistency and that connectivity, if you will, that keeps the trust in place, right? Because I think you're right, there's a certain expectation, and I didn't even think about that. And it's probably can be very subtle in some ways where you don't even realize that you are taking in this information when you are looking at a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we have it. So the other part of what I loved about what you do so much is this idea of business for good. First, we have to get clear on, why are we doing this? And there's multiple whys. And I love that you pointed that out. Absolutely true that putting food on the table, supporting our family is an important why. But especially in the case of my multi-passionate creatives, there's so much more, right? There's a bigger picture involved. Or maybe it's the bigger picture. Sometimes it can be a little meta of, well, I started because I needed to put food on the table, but now I want to help other people put food on the table. I mean, that's a pretty direct example, but it can be that expansion into that. What are the steps that we can take to not only do the steps you're talking about in terms of getting clear and creating this alignment and then moving further? Because I think there's I believe it to be a misconception that, okay, we're one business, we're maybe a solo entrepreneur, right? What can we do?
Yeah, and that's definitely a misconception because think of how many lives we all touch, right? I mean, think of how many followers you have as a solopreneur, whether that is 10 or 10,000, that's more than just you, right? That's more than just your clients. Or think of how many clients you serve every single year or over the years. You have touched many lives, you will touch many lives. So if you are able to bring any iota of positivity or growth or progress, then I think that's absolutely your responsibility. But also, what a privilege, especially as business owners, we get to be creative with how we're able to help. Because at the end of the day, businesses exist to help people. Even if you are B2B, there's still a person on the other side of that. There are still people working at that business. Every single thing that we do is in service of someone else. So, business for good can show up in a lot of ways. It can show up in your pricing. Maybe you have a sliding scale because affordability is really important to you. And you know that not everyone who is launching a business can afford premium services, but they deserve premium attention. So, you have a sliding scale or you have a pay it forward system where more well off business owner can support a newer or lower income business owner. Or maybe you have some sort of scholarship program, or once a year or once a quarter, or however often you take on something pro bono, right? Like that's a super direct way to implement business for good in a way that's really simple too. It doesn't need to be a complicated business model of, well, I am funding a warehouse in a country abroad that I've never visited and there are hundreds of women who work there. That's awesome. If you can incorporate that into your business model, do it. Absolutely. But it doesn't need to be at that scale. And same thing with any other way that you're able to give back, either financially or with your time and skills or with your expertise. Maybe you're willing to speak for free because you know that this community needs to hear what you have to say. Or maybe you are part of a give back program. For example, I'm part of 1% for the Planet, where 1% of my revenue goes to some sort of environmental organization that I get to choose. And that's a really tangible way to give back, but it's also super easy. Like it's not, I don't have to commit a lot of time in my business to fulfilling that commitment. So there are so many ways that business for good can manifest itself. And also, it doesn't always have to be monetary, too. It can be the types of people you hire. Maybe it's a group that is traditionally unhireable, quote unquote. Or maybe it is the fact that you are hyper conscious of your supply chain, the types of vendors that you choose to work with, or the types of supplies that you choose to purchase. You don't have to necessarily do any charitable giving. You just support brands that are doing amazing things in this world. So there are so many ways to accomplish business for good in your business and at whatever scale you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, that is an excellent list. Oh my goodness. And I'm immediately getting ideas and thinking too about how, oh, I've done that. So I think it's such a good reminder that no matter who we are, one person or, 1,000, we can make a difference. And what I'm hearing from you, and it's something that I believe in too. So it is the lens through which I see this is we cannot discount the ripple effect.
Yeah, that ripple effect is everything. That's how anything ever has gotten started, both good and bad. So why not be the catalyst for a good ripple?
Exactly. And this idea that you don't need much to create the ripple. And that's what's brilliant about it is that one person, it reminds me of the starfish story, right? The boy walking along the beach and he's picking up a starfish and tossing it into the ocean. And the man asks him, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Saving the starfish." He's like, "But you can't save them all." And he's, what does it matter? And he's like, "Well, it mattered to that one." And
Mhm.
so, and you just don't know the one person that you're able to do something for, what kind of ripple effect that has. And luckily we do hear stories on, really great Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts and stuff like that, sharing how, someone was impacted and then grew up to save more lives. But even so, your point about these things where you've got like the sliding scale payment, I've thought about that as well. I mean, I do have my packages such that people who started out, like I remember starting out, can still have the benefit of getting a leg up, figuring out things quicker because that's the magic of working with a coach, right? Is that it really speeds up the process. And this idea of the types of people that you work with. For a long time, I have made a point. It's not necessarily that it's exclusive, but I was challenged and I remember being challenged to find work as a mom. So I love hiring moms and giving them that grace and that flexibility that they need, where it's like, no, I just need this work to be done. And you go ahead and deal with school drop off and then get it done. And we're good. And to me, that was magical when I had that opportunity for myself because I didn't always have it. So yeah, the impact is, you're right. It's far and wide. It's not always monetary. Being able to speak during the pandemic, there was a lot going on. And I remember thinking, what can I do? That question happens with us a lot, right? And so I ended up offering to some of the associations that I was with to speak to groups on Zoom. And, that was some time and an effort on my part. And hopefully it made a difference. And there is a leap of faith in there, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything in business is a leap of faith. And at the same time, so is ever trying to make anything better. You just have to go with your gut. All right, I think this is the right choice and hope that it makes the impact that you want. And if you see that, okay, these efforts are not working, then you pivot and you grow and you eventually make whatever impact you're after, especially if you are using your values as that lens, then you can't go wrong. Even if you have a misstep, the direction is still there, the intent is there.
I like that. It's the idea of it's not a failure, it's I like the phrase it's a win or a learn, right?
Mhm.
So what did we learn? And then make the adjustment and pivot accordingly. Okay, I love that. So what would you recommend as the very next simple steps that we can take today to make some of these adjustments that we're talking about?
Yeah, so definitely get clear on your values, or if you think you're clear, just check in with yourself, double check that, all right, have these evolved? Have I evolved? Has my business evolved? Has my audience evolved? All of these things impact your values. Your values are very, very core to you and your brand, but they are not set in stone necessarily. And then also double check your audience as well. Again, am I reaching the exact people I want to reach? Have my past efforts been good, but now I actually want to broaden or niche down even further? Just really evaluate, who is it that I'm trying to impact? I think, yeah, starting with your audience and your values and just checking in there is the absolutely essential first step. And then from there, scaling out a little bit and thinking, all right, how are these moving parts fitting together? And I know we'll probably mention at the end, but I have a free download specifically guiding you through this that also has a consistency checklist in case you're like, oh, I don't even know what's falling through the cracks. That will help with this process.
Awesome. Actually, that's a perfect time to bring it up because my next question would be now when we need help with that next part, where can we find you online? How can we locate you?
Yeah. So my website is ashleesang.com, Ashlee with two E's and sang like sang a song. And I'm on Instagram at Ashlee Sang Consulting. And then if you do want to have a framework and a workbook, I have my Stand Up to Stand Out workbook, which goes through the sort of basics of brand messaging and really just gives you a bunch of reflection questions that you can brainstorm and get those thoughts on paper. And then that consistency checklist that will help you kind of audit every aspect of your business, like how you show up online and what kind of partnerships you're engaged in and that sort of thing, so that at the end you have at least a little bit more clarity. And then, of course, if you need some additional outside perspective, that is what I do.
I think that's a great place to start. We'll make sure to have all these links in the show notes to easily find. And yeah, starting with that, I think that's a great place to begin. So now, are you ready to have a little fun with me in a rapid wrap up?
Sure.
Okay, so simply filling in the blanks for me. So the first is a song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance.
Yeah, this is sort of silly, but I love Bootylicious by Destiny's Child. It just was like a hilarious song growing up, and I still find it hilarious and empowering. And yeah, it's a good time.
There you go. I love it. It brings you joy, and it will be on the Positively Living podcast Spotify dance playlist, volume 3. So we can all listen to it. All right. How about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
Yeah, I have two actually. One that I say most often in my business, but I think absolutely applies to your personal life, which is stand up for your values in order to stand out. That's what makes us us, whether we're talking about us, the person, or us, the brand. But then also, one that I think is so important to live by is to be kind, because you never know what someone is going through. And I think empathy gets us very, very far in life.
In life, yeah, in all aspects of life.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. How about a resource? It could be a book or app that's just made my life better.
I love Notion. It is the first thing that finally works for how my brain works. So, yeah, I am team Notion all the way.
Yeah, I know a few Notion fans. I'm a Notion fan. I happen to use ClickUp more for my business, but I will be bringing someone on the podcast to talk about Notion as well. And even Layla Pomper, who was talking about ClickUp and primarily uses that for her clients, also uses Notion for certain aspects of her life. And yeah, especially if you have a desire to create things that are visually beautiful, right? As well as practical and functional. Notion gives you a lot of options for that. Okay. And then last, but certainly not least, what or whom are you grateful for today, Ashlee?
I'm really grateful for online connections and communities. That is how we met. That is how we're talking right now. That is how we're reaching everyone who's listening to us. And I just think that is a beautiful thing.
I agree so much. I mean, that ripple effect that we're talking about, every time We show up and we're in some kind of group, we make the connection that we do a reel on, on Instagram, whatever it happens to be. We're part of progressively more, I guess, effective ripple effect than we ever have before because of that reach. So, absolutely. And I am most certainly grateful for you and so thankful that you are shining your light and helping us create a business for good, and that you are sharing all of that light and wisdom with us today.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.